Okay, so this whole video has been about our jig fitted front end. 63 to 7. If you want them in the different colors, we'll offer them in the different colors. Our standard color is black, because black shows everything off the best. And that's why I like my primary gel coat color is black. So we know late 66, 67 is black. Late 64 to early 66 is gray, and as Melanie calls the 63 to early 64 the blonde. We have all three of those gel coat colors. This one you'll see when we pull it out of the mold when we're done with it. We've done something a little different with it. We've added some carbon fiber to it. This is going to go on a high-end resto mod build. And so they want a little carbon fiber to accent the carbon fiber hood. And so you'll get to see that at the very end when we open this thing up. But we have everything sitting in our fixture right now, our jig, as some people call it. We made this jig off of our plug that we designed for our one-piece front end. And on that one-piece front end, we used all GM new old stock parts to build that front end. So we saw a lot of those front ends. Those front ends fit great because we started fresh. We didn't copy somebody else's front end. You know, when you copy a copy and then you copy someone else's copy, every time you make something, it gets a little bit smaller, a little bit smaller, and a little bit smaller. So we do our best to till off of original GM. Hey, can you guys turn that fan off for a little bit? And turn this furnace down so it shuts off. That's really the noise maker, is that fan. And so everything that we build, for the most part, either we design it from scratch, or if we're going to tool something that's original, we really want to start with an original new old stock part, or a car that's original parts on that car. It's very important because when you get that habit of copying off of somebody else's part, you don't know what it was tooled off of, and everything keeps getting smaller. So we go out of our way to do it the best way that we can. And like I've explained in the past, you can see that the plug here is made all out of vinyl ester resin, because you don't have the shrink problem with vinyl ester resin as you do with polyester resin. And so we do our best to do everything that we make is vinyl ester. We have no polyester resin under the roof. We have all high-end vinyl ester resins, from our infusion to our press molded parts that we make to a hand laid part. Now you're going to notice a little bit of a difference here between some of these panels that look like that match mold that everybody calls press molded. In today's world, match mold part is pretty much an A and a B mold. You tool off of both sides, which is fine for a small part. You can control it. You can keep your thickness pretty uniform. But this hood surround, we made the press molded, and as you call it, match mold. And I don't like the tooling. I don't like the way the part comes out because it's really hard to keep it uniform. So on the hood surrounds for this front end, we're doing vacuum infusion. So we made another mold that has a big flange around it, so we can vacuum infuse these big parts. In my book, that's the only way to get as close to the original press mold in today's world that you can get to. And so, once again, we're always trying to make it the best. Some of our stuff we leave a little bit on the big side. You'll notice this flange when it comes out of the tool. It's a little bit bigger. It helps it in shipping, gives it a little more strength. When you're ready to put it on the car, take your sanding block in there and get it exactly where you want. And once again, our front ends are built without the sight fenders installed. We'll show you a little clip from a GM article that we have that you've all probably seen. When they're putting the front ends on these cars, they didn't have the side fenders. You watch our video of installing this front end. We've shown a video of our one-piece front end. It's going to apply exactly the same to this. How you build it. We do not glue the inner fenders in any portion. You glue those in after the front end is started to be installed on the car. You glue the call section first, then work your way forward. Do the inner fenders pretty much last, because then you can move your hood, you can manipulate everything that way. If you glue the inner fenders in the front, you're stuck there. That's where your core support goes. You're stuck there. And every car is different. So if we took this off of a car that was one way, the next car might be different. So we do not glue the inner fenders in. We do not suggest that. As a matter of fact, we won't do it. So watch the video, you understand it. So everything's fitted into place. The way we made our jig is our pork chops are bolted exactly in the way they're going to bolt in with the headlight buckets. This being our first one, we're going to build this, we're going to pull the jig off of it, and then we're going to install a set of headlight buckets in here to show you the fit. And with that being said, we're going to dismantle partial this. We're going to take our header bar out, our pork chops out, our two main bonding strips and parking light bonding strips and our bonding strips there. Other than that, we're going to leave the panels in place, and we're also epoxying this together. I'm a firm believer in epoxy. I can remember as a young lad starting out in a Corvette shop in 1972. 73 rolled around and the new 73s came out. One got damaged and they had to put the quarter panel on it. They put the quarter panel on it and they came in the next morning and the quarter panel was laying on the floor. They're saying, gee, what's wrong with this picture? Well, in 1973, they started making everything out of SMC, sheet molded compound. Sheet molded compound doesn't like anything that's polyester or vinyl ester. And so the bonding materials back then wouldn't work on SMC. So we got accustomed to using epoxy. So epoxy's been in my blood for over 50 years now, working on these old cars. And so I'm a firm believer in epoxy. Epoxy doesn't have a shrink at all like polyester does. And we probably could get a vinyl ester bonding material to do these, but I just feel that epoxy is better. When we do seams, we grind out seams, we backfill them with epoxy, so we don't have that shrink problem. So we're going to disassemble this to a point, and then we're going to mix up our epoxy. First, we're going to draw out where our bonding strips are so we know in black not to over put the epoxy in there, and we'll bring you back into play here in a few minutes. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to mark this first, like I said, where I know all my bonding strips are gone and where everything's bonded, so I don't put more epoxy than we need. We want this to ooze out a little bit and we want it to look good. So we're kind of taking this thing apart and reversing it, and getting our game plan together to putting it back together. So we're just trying to position everything to where it's going to be user friendly to put it back together. And we're going to leave our clamps in place that's holding the main panels in. And we'll only pull out our bonding strips for now as we need to. Some of these bonding strips we're going to leave right in place. And we know that we have to glue in our parking light panel bonding strips first, our front lower bonding strips second, then our main bonding strips that hold the hood surround to the parking light, then we'll do our headlight parts. So let's go over to this mixing table. Okay, so Greg is getting our epoxy. As you can see, 300 grams of our epoxy. You weigh this stuff, there's no guessing about it.
said medium.
You're going to use the medium. Medium gives us more time to work with it. And so our mixture is 2 to 1. So we have 2 parts of the epoxy to 1 part of the hardener. And so you're going to go to 150 of the hardener. So go up to that 450 mark. This epoxy we use, we sell. We have an arrangement made with ProSet. They make this epoxy to the formula that we wanted. The way that we want it works really great. And so to purchase it, you purchase it through us. Okay, so there's our first one at 450. Now the second one, we got to take the sticks out to make sure those aren't screwing up our weight. We're at 300. And so anything that we have left over, like our sticks that we didn't use, we're going to mix up what we have left over with those sticks to kick everything off. Anything that we had that we're not using, we let kick off before we put it in the trash. And anything we put in the trash, we kick it off 100%. We don't put just raw materials in. So he'll scrape that off of there. And we're both going to grab 3 paint sticks is ideal to mix with. So he's got 3, I have 3, and we both have a baggie. I like doing it with baggies. You can use any other product that you like when you're working on these. That's your choice. But to me, I can mix up the amount that I need. And after you practice this enough, you'll figure out how much you need. And if you have a little left over, well, you got a little left over. And the other nice thing about this epoxy, if you didn't have enough in the beginning, you usually have enough time that you can come back and mix up some more and finish the job you had and not be rushed. Anything that takes hardener like this and has a name like that is good for filling, but to glue cars together, it just cuts your time so short. And when it gets hot out, everything kicks quicker. And so that's why I like epoxy besides the shrink factor. You got plenty of time to work with it. And so you mix that up good. Make sure it's well mixed. Then you use a heavy duty freezer bag, Ziploc freezer bag. It's like you can be a rock star at holidays and help your other half of your world you live with make Christmas cookies. Put the frosting in the baggie and she'll say, "Where in the hell did you learn that?" And you just tell her, working on old Corvettes. You can cut through if you have to. We don't try to get too formal. And so the longer you leave it in the baggie, the faster it's going to kick in that mass. And so the secret is to get it out of the baggie, and that prolongs the life of it from kicking off. And keep in mind our fixture has been treated like we treat it making a part, so this stuff won't stick to it. And so you take your little razor blade knife and you cut the corner there, and we opened a vent on the back. You got yours open?
Yep.
And so now we just circle this bag around. And we're both going to come inside of here, Greg, and we have to start with the quarter panel or the parking light panel bonding strips. And we're going to squirt some up there where we see our mark, and we're going to stay within the boundaries of our mark, and we're going to put a bead of our epoxy down within the perimeter of that mark. And I also like to put it on the back side of the part as well to make sure we're getting everything applied properly. And you just kind of work this thing back into place to where it was. Now we'll come back and concentrate on that a little bit more once we have our main bonding strip into place. So you just want to make sure you have a bead going down here. And you're also going to put your bead all the way up in the front. And get your front part of your pork chop and the bottom part. Then we're going to run some on the bonding strip, not a lot, but just enough to ensure that we have plenty of epoxy on there. And so keep in mind, this being the first front end we're putting together, we may have to mix up some more epoxy. We don't know yet for 100% until we get this first one. And that bonding strip on you, Greg, is going to move because the epoxy is making it slippery. So don't think anything about it. And our void on the front of the seam when we're done, if it didn't fill the seam in, we'll grind it out and finish it. And I just screwed that up because I did both sides of that bonding strip and not just the bottom. So we gotta wipe that off before we're done. I wasn't thinking. So we're going to shoot a little bit on the back side of this bonding strip because this bonding strip overlies that one. And this one gets laid into place. We'll just snug our clamps a little bit in the beginning. So if we want to move anything, we can move it, reposition it, do anything we have to do. So when you get those into place, then we have our bonding strip that goes. I need a stick. Can you grab me a paint stick or a tongue depressor, DJ, please? So we want to make sure we get epoxy down the side of here. So sometimes your fingers aren't long enough, or if you don't want to get it on your fingers. Part of the reason why we wear gloves all the time, so we don't get it on our fingers. Because you got to remember that partner in your life that you're going to help decorate cookies at Christmas time. You got to keep your hands nice and soft all year round. And so when you're working with any kinds of stuff like this, put gloves on. The gloves will keep your hands softer. They still get beat up, but now I'm going to put one squirt right down the middle and see how much of that'll work to fill my seam. Push that down the side of there nice and hard, and you clamp it. Take your other one, make sure it's pushed down in there good, and clamp it. Now where you see everything oozing out, we're going to come back and clean that up a little bit later. Now I got a funny feeling we're going to need another batch of,
yeah, looks like it.
Another full batch. Because I'm going to pull this header bar out. And I'm going to put down what I have and what you might have left right there on the stool. Nope, these little ones on the stool. Nope, not that one, these two right here. Those are probably going to fit better. But we might be able to scrape up enough. Maybe not. You should be able to get one on the top in the middle, one on the bottom in the middle. There you go. And naturally, like anything else, as time goes by and we do a few of these, we'll teach ourselves a different way to do it. Right now, this is the way we're doing it. Go ahead and match it. I'll whip up another batch.
3 or just one?
Just one batch. The same amount. And I need your acetone rag and a rag real quick. One thing we did do that we didn't do when we had the cameras on was we've wiped everything down with acetone first. Blew it off and wiped it down. I know we did that, but we did it when the cameras are off, so always keep in mind to do that. So now we have our very front bonding strip. So we need to shoot some for our headlight. On the bonding strip or on the panel itself. I think one of our tricks we're going to need, Greg, in the future is 3 guys doing this, so the third guy can assist us and also start to make a new batch when we need it. Now I've got where my excess is oozing out. I can come back and grab my excess. Or I need some more to put on this bonding strip. Because keep in mind with that epoxy, once again, you get it out of that form of being in a mass, and it'll last a lot longer.
Why would you like to do smooth that off? I no, there's a lot of things that are
Got a big blob right there.
Thanks. I needed that. We'll get some more out of this next batch coming up. We can speed this back up again. But while we're waiting, we're going to get this good excess stuff and put it right down the middle to fill in our seam. You ready? Can you form that bag a little bit for me, Mike? Okay, so now we're just going to put a little bead down the middle.
But that's my guess, is that burned off. So that
Okay, Greg, I need you in here to grab that V-bar and take it over my shoulder and just kind of hold on to it. So we're going to come in here and we're going to finish putting our epoxy down for our headlight bar. You got to remember where we're going over the top of a bonding strip, you got to make sure you add some more back in there.
be here all week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna add it to the
Turn the light on. Then you gotta probably
binding strip side to where it's going in.
infinity box without even hitting the key.
All right, it's positioned in there. Now, next thing we're going to do is we only got to put it on this part of the pork chop. Because if you want to come in behind me, Greg, and start installing your bolts, your main 3 bolts on each pork chop. Can you get in there yet or not?
Somewhat.
Hey, come here. Grab this board, put it right back underneath this nose here a little bit, please. You probably want to get to that side, huh? Greg.
You want me to get in there and do those?
I'm sorry?
You want me to get in there and do those?
You got these here to do. The sides of these. That's why I just moved out of your way. I need to, or one of us need to get these into place. And once I have these into place, then you can start tightening up the 1/2 inch bolt heads at the 3 bolts. I need a awl right there, a punch on the side of my toolbox. A punch. Okay, now get in there and tighten up our side bolts first, and then we'll tighten up the other one second. Okay, so let me back in there, and you can probably grab a stick and a small cup as well, and Craig?
Cars at the moment, we have more than enough that we can take on with more or less just
All the gloves and stuff?
I said, unfortunately, we are not working on cars at the moment. We are just focusing on making our own parts.
Yes.
Why not? Try. We're gonna keep far away from that. What's called that? Word.
Okay, so we got to clean all that up off of there. I'm glad to see I wasn't the only one to put it there. We'll hit that with a grinding wheel. When we pull it out. So basically, we're just coming in here to finish cleaning everything up. I need one more of those clamps like that. Doesn't need to be very tight, that's for sure. So we just want to come in here and clean up our areas where it's oozed out. Yeah, and then we want to backfill that like you're doing it. Exactly like you're doing it. Just clean it up the best that you can. Originally from GM, they looked a little excess, so a little excess isn't going to hurt anything. Kind of give you that original look.
Thing is almost fully charged when I started, now it's all close to needing charge.
What's that?
But this thing was close to full when I started, now it's about to need a charge.
We're close to being done.
Yeah. So I got 7 minutes left.
Well, we're just about done. So right now we're just finishing up cleaning up our areas to make it look neat. And for the most part, we're done here. When it comes time to pull this, which we won't do until next week because today is Friday. As a matter of fact, today is Red Friday, as we all know.
It is, yeah.
We want to remember everyone deployed. It's a big part of our life today. A lot of us don't think about it, but a lot of us do. And we're kind of like where we've been in our past life. And we tend to forget the folks that we have deployed right now, protecting us. Protecting us so we can do what we love to do. So as we'd say in the Army, dress right, dress, keep it all uniform. Do the very best you can do at whatever you do. God, that was a long 3 years, but it was very rewarding. Learned a lot. So, this just brings us to an end right now. Like anything else, you can play with it too much and make mistakes then. And so we're going to come back with a little acetone and paper towel and clean up any other mess that we don't like the looks of. And double check our bonding strips. Once again, nice thing about epoxy, it doesn't kick any too quick. So you can come back, you got plenty of time to double check, triple check. I need one more of these little clamps. Thank you. Can you hand me my stick back again and my cup, please? We got a little excess somewhere I can have? Or maybe I can just find some, huh?
I got some. There you go.
Thank you. Okay, I think this brings us to an end. Look at that, a real truck driver. Oh, it's not as big of a truck as I thought it was. That brings us to an end right now at this point. So we're going to go back with a little acetone, just double check a few more clamps, and we're done. Thanks for watching.